Tessa Morgan never thought betrayal could sound so casual. It was a bright Tuesday morning in downtown Austin, the kind of morning that smelled like coffee, ambition, and second chances. Inside her small glass-walled office, Tessa was mid-pitch, her voice steady, her slides crisp, across the table. A potential client nodded, impressed. Her startup, Loop Tech, was finally taking off after 3 years of sleepless nights and silent doubts. Then her phone buzzed. She almost ignored it until she saw the name Carolyn Blake, her mother. A text preview slid across the screen. "We're vacationing in Miami with your sister's family. We emptied the joint account. Ha ha ha." The words didn't make sense at first. They just sat there black on white, mocking her. Joint account. The one she'd been pouring money into for years. The one meant to keep her parents' house afloat. Tessa's throat tightened. She forced a smile at the client. "Sorry, just a quick message from home," she said, voice smooth. Practiced. Inside. Her heartbeat was a drum. As soon as the meeting ended, she stepped into the hallway. The startup's open floor buzzed with quiet energy keyboards clacking, espresso hissing, but her world had gone soundless. She reread the message 3 times. "We emptied the joint account. Not borrowed, not used for bills. Emptied." And the ha-ha at the end, it wasn't humor. It was cruelty dressed as carelessness. For years, Tessa had trusted them. She'd helped with repairs, taxes, even her sister's baby shower when Aaron Ross, always the favorite, needed a little extra. She had done it all quietly, believing it was love holding the family together. Now, it felt like a transaction gone bad. Her fingers trembled as she typed a reply. She erased it once, twice. Every version sounded either too angry or too small. Finally, she sent just 2 words. "Good luck." She stared at the screen, waiting for another message, an apology, a joke, something human. Nothing came. In the reflection on her phone, she caught her own eyes wide, unsteady, but burning. She wasn't the naive daughter anymore. Across the office, her assistant waved a file, asking if she wanted to review the new client contract. Tessa nodded automatically, sliding the phone into her blazer pocket. "Yeah," she said, her tone level. "Let's finalize it today." But her thoughts were already somewhere else on a number in her banking app, a family chat she hadn't opened in months, and the sudden realization that love without respect was just control wearing a smile. She walked back into her office, pulled the blind shut, and opened her laptop. Her cursor hovered over the login screen of the joint account. Balance, 0 points. A cold laugh escaped her lips, soft, sharp, disbelieving. For the first time, she didn't feel hurt. She felt awake. In the quiet hum of her office, Tessa Morgan decided something her family would never see coming. They thought they'd taken everything. They had just taken the wrong daughter to war. 3 months earlier, the first crack had been so small that Tessa Morgan almost ignored it. The joint account meant for her parents' mortgage and upkeep had always been a family trust, a safety net she'd helped build after her startup began making steady profit. When her father, David Blake, called asking for a few thousand to cover an overdue repair, she didn't think twice. He had that soft, weary tone that made her feel 12 again, wanting to be the good daughter who fixed things. But the requests kept coming. 2,000. Then 3. Then another transfer for property tax. Carolyn, her mother, would text polite thank yous followed by emojis that felt oddly performative. Tessa convinced herself it was fine. Families helped each other. She could always earn more. Then, one late night, after a 12-hour workday, she logged into the account to reconcile numbers before tax season. A $5,000 charge glared back at her Sunrise travel agency. Miami Beach. She froze. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard as she clicked to view details. Flights, hotel reservations, luxury car rental. None of it had her name attached. Her first instinct wasn't anger, it was disbelief. Maybe it was fraud. Maybe her mother's card had been stolen. But when she scrolled further, She saw Carolyn's name attached to the booking confirmation. It wasn't a mistake. It was deliberate. Tessa leaned back in her chair, staring at the ceiling of her apartment, the walls, covered in sticky notes and product sketches, suddenly felt claustrophobic. She grabbed her phone and rechecked earlier statements' more withdrawals. Small but frequent, little by little. Her savings had been bleeding out. Her startup, Loop Tech, was finally stable, but she had poured herself dry to keep that account alive. She thought of her sister, Erin Ross, whose perfect life was financed by favors and soft manipulation. Erin never worried about money. Erin had parents who made sure of that. Tessa opened a spreadsheet and began documenting every suspicious transaction: dates, amounts, recipients. Each line felt like a bruise pressed into memory. She screenshot the travel receipts, then backed them up to a secure drive. The betrayal wasn't about numbers. It was about faith misplaced. Her parents didn't just take her money, they treated her trust like collateral. By the time dawn crept through her window, she had proof enough to confront them, enough to burn, but she didn't. Not yet. She saved the file with a single word: truth. And for the first time, she realized she might need it. 2 weeks later, the truth came knocking in whispers. It was a casual phone call from her cousin Lydia, who mentioned hearing her mother brag at a brunch. Carolyn's so excited about their big Miami trip with Erin's family. She'd said, laughing. The words hit Tessa like ice water. Miami, the travel charges. It all aligned too perfectly. She thanked Lydia, hung up, and sat in silence, the hum of her laptop sounding like static. Her chest tightened. There was only one way to be sure. She reopened her old family group chat, muted for months after endless arguments about money and favoritism. The chat loaded slowly, like it knew what waited inside. There it was, a thread between Carolyn and Erin, full of emojis and shopping links, and then the message that ended any trace of denial. Don't worry, she won't notice till it's gone. Erin Tessa's heart pounded so hard it drowned out the city noise outside her window. She stared at the line, rereading it until it blurred. The laughter between them wasn't just about a vacation, it was about her gullibility, about how easy she'd been to use. Her hand shook as she took a screenshot, saving it into the same folder that already held her bank receipts. She renamed the file Family Chat, Evidence. It felt cold, mechanical, but it kept her from crying. The screen lit her face, casting harsh shadows across her eyes. For a fleeting second, she remembered the last real moment of warmth with Erin 2 years ago, when her sister had called sobbing after a breakup and Tessa stayed up all night talking her through it. "You're the only one who gets me," Erin had said then. The echo of that lie stung harder now. Tessa closed her laptop and stood by the window. Outside, the lights of downtown Austin flickered like restless thoughts. Her reflection looked older, steadier, harder. She whispered to the empty room, "You won't notice until it's gone. Then let's make sure you notice." Her anger wasn't loud. It was quiet and deliberate, the kind that planned instead of exploded. That night, she started building something stronger than revenge, a plan. The following morning, the city woke bright and relentless, but Tessa Morgan moved through it on autopilot. Her phone buzzed nonstop with messages from clients, yet her mind replayed one sentence: "Don't worry, she won't notice till it's gone." It looped through her thoughts like static. She skipped breakfast, went straight to the office, and pulled open a contact card she hadn't touched since the last tech conference. Rachel McKay, corporate attorney, sharp-minded, unapologetically blunt. When Rachel answered, her tone was crisp. "Tessa Morgan. Loop Tech. Right. Tessa said, "I need your help, and it's personal." They met that afternoon in a quiet cafe near downtown. Rachel arrived with a leather briefcase and eyes that missed nothing. Tessa slid a stack of printed statements and screenshots across the table. Rachel scanned them without interrupting. 5 minutes passed in silence. Then she set the papers down. Her expression even. "You have a solid case for financial misuse," she said. Tessa folded her hands, fingers cold. "They're my parents." "I know," Rachel replied gently. "That doesn't make it legal." For a long moment, Tessa stared out the window. Families passed by, mothers with toddlers, couples sharing lattes, laughter spilling into the street. It looked so normal, so distant from what she felt. "If I file something," she whispered, "it'll destroy what's left of us." Rachel leaned forward. "Tessa, they already did that. You're just putting it in writing." The words landed hard, stripping away her denial. Her parents hadn't made a mistake, they'd made a choice. A line had been crossed, and pretending otherwise wouldn't make it right. Tessa nodded slowly, swallowing the ache in her throat. "What do I do first? Document everything," Rachel said. "Separate your assets immediately, and if they contact you, don't react emotionally. Every text matters now." When the meeting ended, Tessa walked to her car under the orange wash of sunset. The city hummed around her, alive with ambition and noise, but she felt oddly still. Her phone buzzed again, another message from her father asking for a quick $2,000 to cover bills. She stared at it, unread, then deleted it. That night, she opened a new bank account under Loop Tech Holdings and moved every cent of profit there. Then she saved Rachel's number under emergency contact. The guilt came first, then relief. For years, she'd been the family's safety net. Now, for the first time, she was cutting the ropes. The plan wasn't revenge, it was survival. And survival felt like freedom. 2 weeks later, the first message came through like a test of her resolve. Carolyn Blake texted mid-morning while Tessa was reviewing code updates with her team. "You're too busy with your little app to understand real finances. Leave the account to us." The words dripped with condescension. That same tone Carolyn used when Tessa was a teenager, when ambition was called disrespect. Tessa stared at the text, coffee cooling beside her, the hum of the office fading to a distant buzz. She didn't reply. Not this time. Instead, she opened her banking portal, fingers steady, breath even. With a few clicks, she reported the joint account card as compromised. The bank representative confirmed its immediate cancellation. Tessa thanked her politely, voice calm, professional. Inside, something fierce unfurled. An hour later, her phone rang. David Blake, her father, shouting before she could speak. "What did you do?" "We're at the airport, our card's been declined." Tessa pictured them standing in the glossy terminal, luggage at their feet, the Miami sunlight waiting just beyond the gates. For once, they weren't in control. She could almost hear Carolyn's sharp voice beside him, blaming each delay on her. "Maybe the bank flagged suspicious activity," Tessa said lightly. "You should talk to them directly. Don't play games with us." Tessa David barked. "We needed that money." "You already took it," she replied. "Enjoy the vacation." And she hung up. Her hands trembled after, not from guilt, but from adrenaline. She had imagined revenge before quick. Cinematic, but reality was quieter, cleaner. When the call ended, she sat alone in her office. The city moved on outside her window, indifferent to family chaos. Tessa stared at her reflection in the glass, half lit by morning light. For the first time in years, she wasn't the one apologizing. She wasn't the one paying for peace. At the airport, her parents were stranded. In Austin, Tessa Morgan exhaled. The war had officially begun. That night, the glow of Austin's skyline spilled across Tessa Morgan's apartment walls, but she felt colder than she had in months. The silence after hanging up on her father echoed like a scream she hadn't let out. She turned off her phone, set it face down, and let herself breathe. For years, every conflict in the Blake family had ended the same way: Tessa fixing, apologizing, making peace. But this time there was nothing left to fix. Hours later, the phone buzzed again. It was Aaron Ross. You're pathetic, Tessa. We're family. You don't sue family. The message burned, but Tessa didn't reply. She knew responding would drag her back into the loop. Guilt, defense, manipulation, forgiveness. She had lived that pattern since childhood. She wasn't stepping into it again. She called Maya Liu, her best friend and the only person who knew the full story. Maya's voice was steady, grounding. You did the right thing, she said. Don't let them twist it. Tessa hesitated. I froze their access. Maya, they're stranded. I feel like I crossed a line. No, Maya said gently. You drew one. Big difference. The words settled deep. Tessa sat in her dark living room, watching car lights move across the floor, thinking about how strange it was to feel both powerful and completely alone. By morning, news started to spread. A coworker mentioned hearing something about Tessa from LoopTech freezing her parents' bank account. Someone must have overheard the airport call. Within hours, local whispers turned into digital gossip. Threads on neighborhood apps buzzed. Did you hear about the tech girl suing her parents? Tessa scrolled once, then closed the app. It didn't matter. What mattered was her work. She buried herself in LoopTech's newest project, working 12-hour days to drown the noise. But in between client meetings, she caught fragments of support she didn't expect. Emails from old classmates, a message from a former mentor, proud of you for standing up for yourself. The mix of shame and validation twisted inside her. She'd lost a family but gained something that almost felt like respect. Late that night, she looked through the folder labeled Truth, the bank statements, chat logs, screenshots. It no longer felt like evidence of pain. It felt like armor. Outside, thunder rolled over the city. Tessa closed her laptop and whispered to the storm. They wanted a war. Fine, let's see who wins. And for the first time since the text from Miami, she slept without fear. By the weekend, the story had stopped being private. It was no longer a quiet family shame. It was an open conversation threaded through Austin's digital veins. Aaron Ross made sure of it, her Instagram feed filled with photos from the Miami trip that never happened. Cocktails, beaches, laughter pulled from old vacations but dressed up as new. Her caption read, Family first, always. Tessa saw it on her lunch break. The hypocrisy stung, but what hit harder were the comments underneath. People believed Aaron, at least, at first. You deserve this break, ignore the haters. Family over money. Tessa's fingers hovered over her keyboard. She wanted to defend herself, to post her receipts, to shout the truth. But she remembered Rachel McKay's advice. Never react emotionally. Let proof speak for you. So instead, she took screenshots. Every caption, every comment, every lie. That night, the tide began to shift. Someone, maybe a former coworker of Aaron's, maybe a neighbor, posted a reply under her photo. Didn't your sister pay for that trip? The thread exploded. More questions poured in, followed by silence from Aaron. Then came a call from Aunt Darlene. Her voice trembled, unsure which side to stand on. Your mother says you misunderstood, she said softly, that the money was a loan. Tessa didn't argue. She simply sent Darlene the screenshot from the family chat. Don't worry, she won't notice till it's gone. Silence on the other end, then a whisper. I didn't know, I'm sorry. Tess. The next morning, the whispers spread offline. Carolyn and David's friends began asking questions they couldn't answer. The Blakes' perfect suburban image fundraisers, charity luncheons, church smiles started to crack. A local blog picked up the rumor startup founder faces family fraud who's telling the truth within hours. Public sympathy leaned toward Tessa. Messages flooded her inbox. Strangers sharing stories of parents who'd used them, drained them, betrayed them. For the first time, Tessa realized this wasn't just her fight, it was bigger. By Sunday night, Aaron deleted her Instagram posts. Carolyn stopped answering calls, and somewhere between exhaustion and vindication, Tessa smiled. They'd built their reputation on appearances. Now, the mask was gone. By the weekend, The story had stopped being private. It was no longer a quiet family shame. It was an open conversation threaded through Austin's digital veins. Erin Ross made sure of it. Her Instagram feed filled with photos from the Miami trip that never happened, cocktails, beaches, laughter pulled from old vacations but dressed up as new. Her caption read, "Family first." Always. Tessa saw it on her lunch break. The hypocrisy stung, but what hit harder were the comments underneath. People believed Erin, at least at first. "You deserve this break. Ignore the haters. Family over money." Tessa's fingers hovered over her keyboard. She wanted to defend herself, to post her receipts, to shout the truth, but she remembered Rachel McKay's advice. Never react emotionally. Let proof speak for you. So instead, she took screenshots, every caption, every comment, every lie. That night, the tide began to shift. Someone, maybe a former coworker of Erin's, maybe a neighbor, posted a reply under her photo. "Didn't your sister pay for that trip?" The thread exploded. More questions poured in, followed by silence from Erin. Then came a call from Aunt Darlene. Her voice trembled, unsure which side to stand on. "Your mother says you misunderstood," she said softly. "That the money was a loan." Tessa didn't argue. She simply sent Darlene the screenshot from the family chat. "Don't worry, she won't notice till it's gone." Silence on the other end. Then a whisper. "I didn't know. I'm sorry. Tess." The next morning, the whispers spread offline. Carolyn and David's friends began asking questions they couldn't answer. The Blakes' perfect suburban image fundraisers, charity luncheons, church smiles started to crack. A local blog picked up the rumor startup founder faces family fraud, who's telling the truth within hours. Public sympathy leaned toward Tessa. Messages flooded her inbox, strangers sharing stories of parents who'd used them, drained them, betrayed them. For the first time, Tessa realized this wasn't just her fight. It was bigger. By Sunday night, Erin deleted her Instagram posts. Carolyn stopped answering calls. And somewhere between exhaustion and vindication, Tessa smiled. They'd built their reputation on appearances. Now the mask was gone. The courthouse smelled faintly of paper and nerves. The day had come faster than Tessa Morgan expected, yet slower than she needed. She arrived in a tailored navy suit, her hair pulled back, her mind rehearsing every fact like code ready to run. Beside her stood Rachel McKay, calm, focused, the kind of lawyer who made silence sound strategic. Across the aisle sat Carolyn and David Blake, flanked by their attorney and by Erin Ross, whose arms were crossed tight against her designer blazer. Their expressions carried the same superiority they'd worn all her life until now. It looked brittle. When the judge entered, everyone stood. The echo of wood against tile filled the small courtroom. Tessa's pulse pounded, but her hands stayed steady as Rachel began. "Your Honor," Rachel said clearly, "my client has evidence that the defendants, her parents, misused funds from a joint account designated solely for property expenses. We're not here over family disagreements. We're here over documented theft." Gasps whispered from the small audience. Rachel slid folders across the table. Bank statements, withdrawal logs, screenshots from the group chat. Erin's mocking line projected on a screen behind them. "Don't worry, she won't notice till it's gone." Tessa watched Carolyn's face blanch, her lips tightening. David shifted uncomfortably, muttering something to his lawyer. The defense pushed back. This was a family arrangement. Their attorney argued. There was no written contract. Rachel's tone stayed even. Actually, there was. She lifted the signed document proof that the account was established exclusively for mortgage and maintenance. "Your Honor, my client contributed nearly 80% of these funds under that written agreement. The defendants used it for personal luxury." The judge turned to the Blakes. "Is this accurate?" Carolyn stammered. "We meant to pay it back." It was Erin cut in, voice sharp. "She's twisting everything Tessa's always tried to make herself look better. She's jealous. That's what this is." Her words cracked through the room. The judge's gavel struck once. Miss Ross, you're not a party to this case. Sit down. Tessa met her sister's eyes. Aaron looked away first. David tried to salvage dignity. We're family. Your Honor, families share money. Families also honor agreements. The judge replied, scanning the papers before him. The evidence here is clear. The courtroom held its breath. He continued, voice firm. All assets linked to this joint account will be frozen effective immediately, pending a full financial audit. The defendants are ordered to repay $7,000 to Mrs. Morgan within 24 hours or face penalties. The sound of the gavel landing again felt like thunder. Carolyn's shoulders slumped. David whispered something harsh under his breath. Aaron's eyes glistened with disbelief. Rachel turned to Tessa, a small, proud smile tugging at her mouth. You did it. But Tessa didn't smile back. Victory didn't feel triumphant. It felt heavy, inevitable, like justice arriving late but unflinching. As she walked out of the courtroom, the morning sun hit her face. And for the first time in years, she didn't feel like a daughter begging to be believed. She felt like her own person finally untethered. The news of the verdict traveled through Austin faster than Tessa Morgan could process it. By the next morning, whispers became headlines. The Blakes, once symbols of suburban success, were now the cautionary tale everyone whispered about. Tessa sat at her desk in Loop Tech, the sunlight pouring across stacks of contracts and prototypes. Her email pinged non-stop clients congratulating her, strangers thanking her for standing up. She responded politely, though her heart felt strangely quiet. Justice wasn't loud. It hummed low, steady, final, across town. Carolyn and David Blake were unraveling. Their joint assets frozen, their savings depleted. They'd begun selling things that once defined their pride, David's vintage convertible, Carolyn's diamond necklace. Aaron Ross deleted her social accounts after losing clients at her real estate firm. The perfect family facade had shattered. Tessa didn't celebrate. She didn't need to. The silence that followed was reward enough. Her aunt Darlene posted a public apology. Family should mean trust, not entitlement. Proud of Tessa for protecting hers, the comment section filled with support. That evening, as Austin's skyline glowed under the fading sun, Tessa walked home alone. Her phone buzzed with a single text from an unknown number. You've ruined us. It had to be Aaron. She stared at the message for a long moment, then deleted it without replying. There was nothing left to ruin. That family had already done it themselves. Inside her apartment, she made tea, sat by the window, and let herself feel the quiet weight of everything she'd lost and everything she'd finally taken back. For the first time, peace didn't feel fragile. It felt earned. 2 years later, the city of Austin glowed brighter than Tessa Morgan remembered, inside the downtown convention center. Banners for Loop Tech innovations shimmered under spotlights. Reporters, investors, and clients filled the hall as she stepped onto the stage, calm and confident in a navy suit. The launch of her company's newest AI platform marked a milestone, one built not on family money or favors, but resilience. In the front row sat Maya Liu, now her business partner, smiling proudly. We made it, Maya whispered when Tessa walked off stage. Tessa smiled back, the kind that came from peace, not victory. After the event, a journalist asked her the question everyone wanted answered. If you could speak to your family today, what would you say? Tessa paused, eyes glinting beneath the camera lights. Nothing, she said simply. Silence says enough. That night, back in her apartment, she found a letter in her mailbox, her sister's handwriting. I didn't mean to hurt you. The words were desperate, uneven. Tessa read the first line, then fed it through the shredder without hesitation. Some stories didn't need an ending. She walked to her balcony, the skyline sprawling before her, and breathed in the warm Texas air. The city pulsed with life, with new beginnings. For the first time, Tessa wasn't defined by who she'd lost. but by what she'd built. Her voice was soft, almost a whisper. Blood gave me life, but peace gave me meaning.